We've had further announcements this week that we aren't ready to let go of lockdown yet. This situation with the pandemic is still too precarious and we need to stay patient, hold our nerve. It's not easy. When all this got real for us last March and the message of stay home was rolled out, it seemed simple. What, you want from me to stay home and put my feet up and watch a bit more TV? Okay, I think I can manage that for a few weeks. Of course, the situation was vastly different for those whose jobs put them at the sharp end of things, in the critical care units, for example. It still is. But we're getting to almost a year on, and the cracks are really showing. People are so tired, and the toll of living on high alert and in crisis mode is great. But somehow we need to keep going, to keep on keeping on and help one another through this time. Now, someone who knew something about enduring times of trial was the Apostle Paul. He became blind for a short period of time, was beaten on numerous occasions, experienced being shipwrecked, and was also imprisoned. If we are ever tempted to think of Christianity as a fair weather faith, or that being a Christian means that life will be easy for us, then a look at Paul's experience should wake us up from that. His testimony provides plenty of evidence that life can be brutal. But his testimony also provides plenty of examples how faith in Jesus provided everything he needed to keep going, regardless of the circumstances. And not just to keep going, but to keep love and joy and hope in his life. We're going to spend the next 3 weeks looking at one of the letters Paul wrote, his letter to the church in Philippi. I'm calling the mini-series Letters in Lockdown because Paul spent 2 years under house arrest and probably wrote this letter during that time. He wrote to encourage the church, also to thank them because they'd sent him a visitor, Epaphroditus, along with a financial gift to help him in his time of trial. And we'll look at 3 passages from the letter. But can I encourage you to read the whole letter? It's really one of the short ones, so it won't take very long, but it contains so much good food for thought and so much encouragement. One of the features of the letter is that there is a huge focus on joy. In fact, joy or rejoicing is mentioned 16 times. And it's a remarkably positive letter, given that Paul writes it in chains. Maybe this one was written on a particularly good day. But in the first section of the letter, we see something of Paul's attitude, which is really important and which I think can help us. After the formal opening, his first sentence is, I thank my God every time I remember you. I thank my God every time I remember you. Paul starts from a place of gratitude. He starts from a place of remembering something good, thinking about people he cares about and the work he's been involved in. See, he'd been involved in founding the church in Philippi, and now as he thinks about them, he thanks God. He's grateful. That is his starting point. And the second thing to notice is that he is outward focused. He's thinking about other people and what God is doing in their lives. He says to the Philippians, I have you in my heart. He cares about them genuinely and deeply, and what happens to them matters to him. He can't be with them, and so instead he reaches out with this letter. He writes to encourage them, and particularly to share the most precious gift he has with them, Jesus Christ. It may seem that when he is locked up, his ministry has to go on pause, that he can't be as effective as he would like to be. And yet, these letters that he wrote not only encouraged the churches and Christian believers that he wrote to at the time and who they were originally written to, but they've been an encouragement to literally millions of people all around the world and through many, many generations. He did what he could for others in the circumstances he found himself in. He could not have known what the impact would be and the difference that it would make. He was just writing a letter. But look at what came of it. Paul started from a place of gratitude, and he remained outward focused. And the last thing I want to highlight is that Paul prayed. He didn't just think good thoughts about others, he prayed for them. He didn't send good vibes, he prayed. He spent time in the presence of God and brought people with him into the presence of God through prayer. Now, it can seem that prayer is something a bit fuzzy and vague. There may be cynicism when it feels like thoughts and prayers are used as an alternative to action. After all, you can't eat thoughts and prayers if you are hungry and have no food. And thoughts and prayers won't keep the rain off if you have no roof over your head. But notice what Paul's prayer is. That your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best. It was a prayer for people to grow in love, grow in knowledge and insight, and be able to discern what is best. This prayer is about expanding our hearts, that we would love God and love other people more and more, that our love would abound. And when we love something, we want to know more. We want to learn about it and understand it better. And so our love then drives us to learn. So Paul's prayer is also about growing our minds, that we know and understand how to care for and do what is best for others and for God. It equips us not only with the motivation, but the ideas which then show us what to do. So it's a prayer which guides us to loving and wise action. This is no feel-good fuzzy prayer. It's a prayer for transformation to the glory and praise of God. Paul was unable to go and see the Christians in Philippi, and he didn't have the resources he could send to them, but he could write. He could share his faith. He could teach and encourage, and he could pray. We do what we can with what we have. We use what God has given us to love and serve Christ and to love and serve others. Now, I'm sure that in this season there will be good days and bad days. If you're anything like me, there are anyway. And I imagine that on Paul's bad days, he may not have written. He might not have had the energy. Or perhaps he did, but those letters weren't really worth sending or keeping. But on a good day, he shows us the example of starting from a place of gratitude, of remaining outward focused, and praying. For some of us, we may be stuck at home in lockdown, but these are things we can do, even when we can't get out and do all the things that we really want to be doing. We do what we can with what we have. And to help us keep going, no matter where we are or in whatever situation we find ourselves, we can draw on Paul's example in starting from a place of gratitude, remaining outward focused, and always remembering to pray.